Not very long ago, hundreds of rioters breached the seats of American power, and one of the icons of its pride. Supporters of then-President Donald Trump had stormed the US Capitol building to thwart ratification of Joe Biden's as Justice Department's historic prosecution. The US showcased to the world that democracy cannot be held hostage to the whims of the few. A few years back, London was engulfed in flames of violence that spread across the United Kingdom. In response, hundreds of people were arrested and courts stayed open 24 hours a day to dish out swift justice. No one was spared, and the world saw an 11-year-old girl in the dock for taking part in the rampage. The sentences handed down to the convicted rioters by the courts were seen as more draconian than ever before. Whether it were London riots or the attacks on the US Capitol, states' responses reflect and convey one message: commitment to upholding rule of law. Pakistan faced a similar situation on May 9th. A series of deadly riots that include attacks on military installations, vandalism of state icons, and desecration of martyrs' memorials shocked the nation's core. The day will forever be etched in the annals of the national history as a black day. What happened on May 9th? It all started with the arrest of Imran Khan on charges of corruption amounting to a staggering 60 billion rupees. Khan's populist rhetoric and verbal attacks on state institutions emboldened his supporters to cross the red line. His call for protest has been emphatic and repeated. PTI leaders and supporters took to the streets in no time and paralyzed life in all major cities. 2:30 p.m. to 2:40 p.m. The PTI leaders started gathering at Khan's Zaman Park residence. In next 2 hours, the rioters followed instructions and reached Jinnah House, the Corps Commander Lahore's residence. 5:15 p.m. First attack at Jinnah House was repulsed. 5:27 p.m. The number of rioters swelled and they intruded the house again. 5:30 p.m. to 6:07 p.m. Another rally of PTI workers arrived at Jinnah House. It was the time when vandalism started and the house was burnt to ashes in the next 2 hours. The riots and vandalism was not spur of a moment thing. It was planned at Khan's residence on May 8th and executed the next day while senior leadership of the party was pulling the strings.
सबको निकलना पड़ेगा।
क्या आप सब तैयार हैं? अगर ये फट गई कौम तो आप सबको अपने आप को बचाना, छुपते फिरेंगे आप। तो आप भी तैयार हो जाए, मैं तैयार हूँ। मैं बता रहा था इनको कि डरो उस वक्त से जिस दिन आपने हरकतें की, ये फट गया ना तो ये कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकोगे। मैं सारी कौम को भी बता रहा हूँ, आप आज के लिए तैयार हो जाए।
रेड लाइन क्रॉस हुई तो आज कैंट की रेड लाइन भी क्रॉस हो गई।
हमारे पास एक ही रास्ता है कि हमने अब हर हद तक जाना है इनके खिलाफ और इंशाअल्लाह हम पूरे पाकिस्तान को बंद करके बताएंगे।
दोस्तों, कोई किसी का इंतजार ना करे, आपको जगह बताई गई है, आप अभी निकले।
कोर कमांडर की तरफ जा रहे हैं।
Geofencing investigation traced 154 mobile numbers active during the planning and execution of the attacks. Imran Khan was arrested in the capital, but he was in contact with 6 people at his Zaman Park residence during the riots. Yasmin Rashid, Hamad Azhar and Mahmoud al-Rashid were issuing instructions to the protesters. According to the findings of geofencing data, PTI leader Ejaz Chaudhry incited rioters to violence in 50 calls, Yasmin Rashid in 41 calls, Mahmoud al-Rashid in 75 calls and Hamad Azhar in 10 calls. Similarly, the GHQ was stormed in a well-thought-out plan.
चीज नॉर्मल चलेगी तो फिर जाओ घरों में जाके सो जाओ और आजादी पे पढ़ो इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन।
The writers and the leaders had one aim: cover up Khan's corruption by resorting to attacks on public and private properties. Defying all the promises and tall claims of accountability, the PTI made desperate attempts to shield Khan from the nation's scrutiny. Memorials of the nation's founder and symbols of its defense were torched, and martyrs' memorials were desecrated. They crossed the red line and committed unforgivable crimes, hurting sentiments of millions of Pakistanis. Pakistan's crackdown against the miscreants is being blindly seen as something unprecedented in the recent history of democratic nations. The criticism of Pakistan's actions to maintain peace and restore order is without any justification. It undermines the globally accepted principle of dealing miscreants with might of the state. Pakistani government strongly believes in freedom of expression, jealously safeguarding rights of its own citizens.
ऐसे एलिगेशंस जो कि इस वक्त उन लोगों के हवाले से आ रहे हैं जिनको अरेस्ट किया गया है कि उनके साथ कोई ना बुरा सलूक हुआ है या टॉर्चर हुआ है, हमें उसके कोई शवाहिद नहीं मिले। हमारे HRCP के नुमाइंदे ने अडयाला जेल में मुलाकात की है जेर हिरासत उन PTI वर्कर्स की जो इस वक्त वहाँ मौजूद हैं। वहाँ पर एक खातून है जो कि PTI से ताल्लुक़ रखती हैं और 9 मई के हवाले से जेर हिरासत हैं। उनके साथ किसी किस्म की बदसलूकी या किसी किस्म के टॉर्चर के कोई शवाहिद नहीं मिले और बराह रास्त उनसे बात करने पर उन्होंने ऐसे किसी फेल से को डिनाई किया है।
The attack, which posed threat to the men and women serving in uniform and jeopardized national unity and security, braved the government to make sure justice is served. It is in this backdrop that the country's leadership decided to try the arsonists under the Army Act. It is not something new and is a time-tested law. Since 1952, the Army Act has passed the test of judicial review by superior courts of Pakistan on several counts. It allows the accused to engage a legal counsel of his choice, right to appeal, as well as right to challenge the orders of judicial review. If juxtaposed with Anti-Terrorism Act, ATA, the law under which civilians are tried in terrorism-related cases, the quantum of punishments under the Army Act is lower. In any of the cases, there is no chance of death sentence under the Army Act. The events in the past few weeks have laid bare evil designs against the state and prompted questions in the minds of every patriotic Pakistani about whose agenda the arsonists inflicted death and destruction. Does Pakistan have no right to restore peace and maintain order? If former US President Donald Trump can face criminal charges for capital rights, what makes Khan immune? No one is above the law. No one.